Good day and welcome, everyone. We will begin our session at 2 minutes after the top of the hour. Again, welcome. We're glad to have you. We'll begin our session at 2 minutes after the top of the hour. Again, welcome, everyone. For those of you that have just joined, we will begin our session at 2 minutes after the top of the hour. Again, welcome. We're glad to have you. We'll begin our session shortly. Welcome, everyone. We will allow others to join. We'll start in about another minute and a half. For those of you that have joined, if you could go ahead and just kind of acknowledge if you've been with me all week, taking the fundamentals in the search mastery, just by raising your hand or just in the chat. Oh, okay. Quite a few of you. Welcome back. Welcome, but glad to have you. Again, allowing others to get their last little runs in. We'll start at 2 minutes after the hour. Glad to have some of you back with us. Okay, let's go ahead and get this party started. Again, welcome back, and welcome to those of you that were not with me all week. I'd like to thank you for joining us here for this session of our administration certification. Okay, my name is Odell Gordon. I am a technical trainer here at Sumo Logic. I am based out of the Midwest. I'm in the suburbs of Chicago. My background, I've been in IT for over 30 years now. I enjoy training. So the last 15 years, I've been in technical training. And again, I enjoy teaching. So hopefully we can make this fun and you have something to learn. If you haven't learned all week, something, okay? All right, thank you those that have joined us and put in the chat where they're dialing in from. I appreciate you. I'll reach out to you shortly. So again, this is our Sumo Administration Certification session. In this session, our agenda is to, we're going to download a file that we will use as a source for our collector, okay? So again, we want to simulate this. Thank you, Greg from London, the UK. Good afternoon. Glad to have you. So we're going to download a file that we're going to need. So you're going to be able to do that. Then you and I are going to, talk about the collectors and metadata just to kind of refresh our minds about it. Collectors and metadata, that highway. So we're going to spend all our time about moving things on that highway and managing that highway, so to speak. Then we'll log into our environment. We'll do a hands-on lab. We'll do 3 labs where we'll set up a collector and add 2 sources. That downloaded file in the first step that we do, and when we get to the labs, that's going to be one of our sources, okay? Then I'll go over the optimization tools. I'll give you an overview of the administration setup. Then you and I will come back in and we'll complete the installations of 2 apps, okay? So in lab number 4 and lab number 6. Notice we don't have a lab 5 there. So typically what we do when we offer these courses, we offer them in a session, like 3 sessions. We'll offer the fundamentals, the search mastery, and the admin. So we're skipping 5 because we allow those self-paced learners to go back and take the fundamentals course. So that's what 5 does. We won't allot the time, but again, you'll see it when we get there. And then lastly, ladies and gentlemen, we'll go ahead and for the examination, we'll allow you the 60 minutes and get certified, okay? Again, after you take the certification and pass the exam, you will be rewarded with a $15 Uber Eats certificate. I will post this link in the chat when we take the exam, okay? All right, so the first part of this here is lecture. We're gonna repeat and kind of make sure you understand and go over this. Repetitiveness is in learning. So again, we're gonna go through this over and over again to kind of make sure you get it. I am gonna save some bandwidth and turn off my camera and let you focus on the slides and the lecture. All right, so we're gonna talk about the high level data flow. And as I mentioned yesterday, if you were with me yesterday, and I apologize for referring to classes yesterday, but quite a few of you were in the class. But anyhow, this data flow is what I talked about when I leaned on your imagination. One of the things that I said was, let's imagine a highway. On one end of the highway is Sumo Logic's cloud-based environment. On the other end of the highway is your logs, your metrics, your traces, all your data, okay? So we have to use a mechanism to get your logs, your traces, your metrics in our Sumo Logic environment. And I'm focusing when I'm speaking right now, I'm talking on the data flow step process number 1. So in order to get your data in our environment, we're going to use a collector. There's 2 types of collectors. Those collectors allow you to define your sources, okay? Again, in this data flow, this is how to utilize the tool by starting from point 1. Again, one of our core values is we're in it with our customers. And I often say at the beginning, at the very start, we're in it all the way through, okay? So we're gonna help you get your data in our environment. Once you get it in, you and I will be able to search, analyze using operators and charts. We did that yesterday. If you weren't with us, the search mastery class goes into searching and analyzing using operators and displaying in charts, okay? And then finally, after you get it in there and you define your results and you display them in charts, you may want to create a dashboard so you can monitor them and set up alerts, okay? Set up visualizations. So that's the logical data flow. That's how, from the start of getting your data in, what do you do once it's in there, and then how do you share it with others? Again, now this slide talks about getting your data in. So these is step 1. As I mentioned, we're gonna be handheld with you if you need it to get you started. Okay. Again, all of those machine data that you have, we need to get that into our environment. Okay. You do that by either using either and or an installed collector and or a hosted collector. Okay. What you're seeing on the screenshots is where you and I will go once we get into the actual lab guide. We'll go into our navigation panel and we'll go down to the collectors in the main menu under my managed data. Then we'll be able to see where we can add a collector. These are the steps that we're going to go through to add a collector. Now, some of you have been in class with me and you might have seen this page already, okay? But now we're going to see it from an administrator's perspective. So step 1, getting your data into our Sumo environment. Again, step 2, now your data's in there. And be aware, as your data comes into Sumo, it gets tagged, okay? So you want to be able to now create log searches or metric searches, or you want to do a live tail. And if you're not familiar with a live tail is typically ran by an administrator. He or she uses a live tail to view the data as it's being ingested into Sumo Logic. That's what a live tail does for you. It allows you to see the data as those messages as they're being ingested into Sumo Logic, okay? Again, once you get into these log searches and metrics, you do have the ability to build dashboards that allow you to display and share your findings. Step 3, we have, again, to assist you, over 200 apps provided in our tool. Those apps are for most of the frequently used data sources. So we have apps as starting points for data sources that have dashboards and searches in them already created for you to get you started. Odell, what do you mean? Well, when you log into our tool as an admin, let's say it's the first time, and you have no idea how to use the tool, but you know you need to monitor your S3 buckets or what have you, your Kubernetes, maybe you need to monitor that. We have apps for that have out-of-the-box dashboards and out-of-the-box search and out-of-the-box, in some instances, field extractions. So we have starting points for a lot of those data sources. So you begin to, in step 3, visualize, and monitor by looking at dashboards, by installing the recommended. There's 2 recommended apps that we again suggest you start installing as a default. Okay, it's not mandatory, but it's just a recommendation. And we're going to do that in demos 4 and 6. You're seeing the screenshot here over to the right. This is where our app catalog. This is where you can filter down. We're going to get in there and do that. Filter down and see the apps by what type of source you're using. Okay. And then at the bottom here, you're seeing an actual screen caption of a dashboard based on my Apache web farm. So I know I need to monitor my Apache web farm. I know Sumo Logic has predefined apps that monitor these sources. I'm going to download that app so I don't have to build any dashboards. I don't have to build any searches. It gives me a starting point. Okay. Also be aware there's metrics tutorials for you as well for metrics if you're looking for collecting and visualizations. We offer a metrics course as well. Okay. Whoops, didn't mean to do that. Clicked on the link accidentally. All right, now we talked about getting it in. What do we want to do with it? How we can share it, and Sumo has predefined apps for us. It has an app catalog. Now let's talk about data collection. Okay, you may have seen this slide before if you've taken a course with me. You may have. If you haven't, no worries. It looks overwhelming, but you and I are going to divide it in half, right down the middle. Okay. And again, I talk about that imaginary highway that we have. On one end of the highway is the Sumo Logic cloud-based environment. There it is. Okay. On the other end of the highway is your logs, your metrics, your traces. Okay. Somehow we have to get your logs, your metrics, your traces into our Sumo Logic cloud environment. So as I mentioned, we're going to divide this slide in half. The mechanism or the vehicle that we're going to use to get your logs, your traces, your metrics into our environment is an install collector or hosted collector. Okay, let's look at the left side and the install collector. What this is exemplifying here is we've installed a collector on multiple servers. So this is more like a distributed environment. So this is like an on-prem environment. We install a collector on each one of these servers. Those collectors are going to encrypt, compress, and send your logs, your metrics, your traces through the firewall into the Sumo Logic environment. That's like a distributed on-prem environment example. Now down here to the left, below the distributed, maybe you want to have a standalone. Okay, I want to have a centralized where all the other servers send their logs and their metrics to this standalone centralized Sumo install collector. It, of course, is going to encrypt, compress, and send through the firewall up into Sumo Logic. On-prem, distributed approach, standalone approach. Now, the other type of collector or the other vehicle, okay, is called a hosted collector. Okay, and with that one, ladies and gentlemen, you don't do any installations. Yay! I don't have to install anything. So if your logs and your traces and your metrics are already in the AWS or Google Cloud or in Azure, they're already in the cloud. You don't need to install anything. You just need to let us know where they are, what logs you're doing, and any credentials we need, and we'll host it. Okay, so the big takeaway from this screenshot here is there's 2 types of collectors, 2 vehicles that's going to get your log metric traces into our environment. Depending on if you are in an on-prem or a cloud, is going to determine what you're going to use. This reconfirms what I just said. Install collectors, again, is installed on the system with your either locally or remotely. When you do an install collector, it has files that it records what's going on. So you can troubleshoot in your logs. I said files, but logs. I'm old school. So again, you can easily troubleshoot because again, it has logs as you're going through the installation. So that's an install collector. A hosted collector, again, it's agentless, meaning you don't have to install anything. It's seamless for those three that I mentioned, AWS, Google, and Microsoft. Again, you can receive logs and metrics through URLs as well. Now, the question may come up, well, Odell, that's great. But how many collectors do I need? And I got to give you the old consultant answer, depends. An install collector on a dedicated machine you would use when you run with high bandwidth, okay? Or with high logging levels, okay? Or if you require a central collection point for many sources. Now, when you want to use more than one collector, now, Odell, how many sources can I define on a collector? You can have up to 1,000, okay? Now, more than one install collector is utilized, and key points here is when you have to ingest more than 500, greater than 500 separate files, okay? If you have high memory or CPU limitations, another key one here, if your collectors be expected to be logging traffic greater than 15,000 events per second. So those are just some kind of like bellwether things to be aware of. So this slide represents, again, the two vehicles to get your logs, your traces, your metrics into our environment, okay? One approach is a hosted collector. Again, there's no installation. It's going to be essentially hosted by Sumo Logic. You just need to tell us what sources you want us to collect, okay? On the other hand, this goes back to my original slide that was really busy, okay? This is that same type of description, okay? Here, I'm installing a collector on a dedicated machine, centralized. Other machines are sending their logs, their metrics, and their traces to this dedicated collector. It is, of course, going to encrypt, compress, and send it to Sumo. The other example I gave you was when it was a distributed, where there's a collector on each server. Here, each collector is going to encrypt, compress, and send. Now, these next set of slides sort of, again, talk about hosted versus installed, distributed, and standalone, okay? So this first one is talking about cloud data collection, which is that hosted. So if you want to collect your S3 buckets, your G Suites, your cloud syslogs, those are just examples of source types that you're collecting, okay? For your cloud, for the hosted collector. Again, some of the benefits, there's no software to install, okay? And for those of you that haven't migrated to the cloud, this kind of is a selling point for you to kind of migrate to the cloud, okay? You can configure, and we'll help you with that here at Sumo as well. Again, it's agentless. We are going to host it. This here, customers using the cloud infrastructure. It's also possible to rely on data collections entirely. So this is not typical, but you can do that as well. The next slide talks about, again, the local data collection. We're installing on all target hosts where possible. It's going to send the logs that you produce to the target host and then directly to Sumo Logic backend via HTTPS connection, okay? So if you're collecting your database logs or maybe your Windows events or some middleware or some apps, again, there's no hardware needed, but it gives you direct access to your logs. Remember, when you do a install collector, it's gonna give you the ability to look at the logs so you can troubleshoot easily. It does, however, require outbound internet access. It requires software installation and management, okay? And again, the resource usage on the target. Now, there are some scenarios. If you have a large number of target hosts, you might want to create this distributed approach here. If you don't have the resources to maintain or build an infrastructure for a centralized, then this might be your approach as well. You can automate your deployments, but if you're comfortable with your target hosts, okay, being connected to the internet, or you have majority of the target hosts in the cloud, those are some scenarios. And then lastly, that centralized approach, maybe I'm just collecting my cloud API logs or my binary data or some middleware. Again, there's no outbound internet because again, it's centralized. It leverages existing infrastructure. Scaling might be an issue, and dedicated hardware might be a problem because you're dedicating a source there. Some scenarios if you have too many target hosts. So if you have dozens, not thousands, or if you have any existing logs, issues, or limitations. So again, those are just further explaining those two approaches, hosted and installed. And again, within install, you have two approaches as well. We want to remind you, ladies and gentlemen, we often talk about our tool collects logs, but we also collect metrics. So you can get your different types of carbon height, graphite, or Prometheus metrics. You can grab your metadata from your CloudWatch metrics or your Stack metrics, Azure. Again, we collect metrics as well. Everyone thinks we're just a log collector, but again, we collect metrics also. Now let's talk about that ingestion. Again, each account has a data point per minute applied to it, okay, a DPM. And once we get into, I'm going to talk about that as well, but I just want to keep something in mind for you, okay? Now, first of all, Sumo doesn't ingest metric data that is more than 1 week old, okay? So we want to keep this here a little schematic here over here in mind, okay? So metric data is stored as raw 1 minute and 1 hour resolutions. It's a retain for 7 days. For those 1 minute resolutions, we're retaining for 30 days. Again, we're talking about those metric data. And for 1 hour resolutions, we're retaining for 13 months, okay? All right, so now let's get to our metadata design. So we know how to get it in. And remember, everything that goes in is going to be tagged. Our tool is tagging it. So we need to be able to grab it, okay? These are metadata tags that you can use. There's just 3 of them, but there's more than one, okay? The one that we'll use most often, you'll see us use most frequently, if you haven't already seen it already throughout our courses this week, is the source category, okay? The underscore source category is the metadata tag that can be freely configured. So again, we can freely configure that to labs Apache. Now that's going to get everything under Apache, but let's say we want to get labs Apache Era, or lab Apache Access, or AWS REST Region 1 Apache Access, or prod. So again, it can be freely configured. All right. Now you'll notice down here at the bottom, you see a screenshot here. That's again going into the collections. Looking at all the collectors, you have the search capability. Once we get in there, I'll talk about this again, but I want you to be aware what's on the screen, okay? Again, you'll see the collector name, and underneath it, it has 2 sources. You'll notice here under sources, it says 8. We're only showing you 2, okay? But it has 6 others, but we can't see it, all right? And I'll get in here and talk about this a little bit more as well. Now, as far as those metadata tags and being able to utilize the source category, you want to start from the highest level grouping and then get more descriptive. For example, if I'm in a environmental space, I can set up my metadata tag underscore source category equal to prod my app Apache Access. So this is going to be looking at my production for that app, the access logs, okay? Whereas if we're in an application environment, I can set up my Tomcat Catalina out. So this is going to give me out logs from my Catalina on the Tomcat, and so forth and so forth. My AWS region. Maybe that's the easier way to describe your environment. AWS East, Sec Azure. Okay, and so forth. Now, some of the benefits of using our recommended best practice approach is, again, when it comes to searching, when you're able to use wildcards, where they're able to go down through all of your data. Okay, the asterisk here is a wildcard. We have similar features as SQL, as SQL. You may be familiar with it. Okay. Another advantage of creating and using a high-level grouping for categories for best practices is, again, you might be able to partition. Partition is going to improve performance. For example, let's say I have a business unit that has, they have a nice balance in their account and they want to use the tool, but they only want to see their data. They don't want to have to see their whole company. So I can partition off their environment, okay? So they can actually grab their partition. So that's another example and benefit of using the high-level grouping. And then finally, using the role-based access control. By doing that, we can limit what users see, what data. Okay, so using these types of high-level groupings for our source categories. Be aware, you also can go out and search on our help. You can go out and search for bad source categories, good source categories. Okay. All right. So what you and I are about to do, ladies and gentlemen, you and I are about to first download a file. Then we're going to install a collector. We're going to use this downloaded file as a source, and we're going to create a metric source. Those are the 3 steps that we're going to do in labs 1, 2, and 3. Okay. All right. So first of all, I want you to think of a 3-digit number. Okay. Any 3-digit number from 1 to 999. Now, ladies and gentlemen, for those of you that were with me throughout the week, if you notice, we're using a different email address here. So you can use the same number, but the credentials are going to be different. I am going to place in the chat. Thank you for putting your 3-digit number in the chat window. Thank you. Again, any 3-digit number. Greg, change your number. You and Davi have the same number. It's not a big deal. Both of you guys use 999, but you would have to put initials after your things, so. All right, great, thank you. One better. All right, so here's the credentials, ladies and gentlemen. I want to walk you through for those that have never been in our tool. Again, it's really easy. You're logging into our training environment, okay? Now, we give you access to our training environment. You're going to have free access until the first Monday of the next month, okay? So the first Monday in August, the password changes, okay? I showed a lot of you where to find that in your real world environments. Again, I may go through that again if I have time, but again, we put the password out in the actual certification environment. Anyhow, go ahead and open up a browser, type in service.sumologic.com. That is going to lead you to our training environment. And as I mentioned to some of those users that were here this week, we're using a different email address. We're using training, the plus symbol, but this time we're using admin. If you recall, we weren't able to see a lot of our objects in the admin environment because we weren't logged in correctly, okay? Then you're gonna put your 3-digit number, sumologic.com, okay? So again, training plus admin, your 3-digit number at sumologic.com. The password is uppercase SUMMER 22 exclamation mark. So uppercase S for and then summer. And again, I like looking at it because I always fat finger it. All right. Please let me know if you were unable to log in. Please let me know if you were unable to log in. If you log in and you come in and you see a bunch of tabs, or if you see any tabs open, close those tabs. If you're unfamiliar how to close tabs, you go to any one of those tabs in the tool and you go to the more, the three dots, and you close all tabs. All right. Let's confirm that everyone's in. Go ahead and let me know that you've logged in successfully, please. Thank you, Matthew. Thank you, Craig. Thank you, Nat. Pardon me. Thank you, Alec. Thank you, Ian. Thank you, Mr. Sutler. Thank you, Jake. I assumed, Mr. I apologize. Thank you, Sutler. Thank you, Jake. Thank you, Greg. Anyone have any troubles getting in? I don't want to leave anyone. All right, awesome. So here we go. All right, so again, you all should be familiar with this environment, ladies and gentlemen. Again, you know, you have a navigation panel up here. The arrow hides it. The stack of blueberry pancakes shows it, okay? Let's go down into our main menu. And let's click on the help in our main menu. And let's go to documentation. I just demonstrated another way to get to the help.sumologic.com. Okay? You should never be in trouble in this tool because that help is going to be your resource. Anyhow, once you get here, let's go down to the phrase in the Start Here box. Let's click on Quick Start Labs and Tutorials. Let's click on the administration. I'll put this in the chat in case you are unable to grab it. Okay. If you're in a Google Chrome environment, you can pin your tabs. So I am going to right click on my lab tab and pin it. One of the advantages is its easy use to allow me to go from the CIP back to my lab guide just rather quickly. It's not mandatory, just a nice little tip that I like to share with others. Okay. All right. In the lab guide here, it says introduction. Okay, I want us to look at the introduction. If you ever, all of our lab guides have an introduction. It tells you, hey, you're logging into our training environment. But it also says if you need to request the actual password, you can always send an email to us, okay? So I wanted to show you that as well. All right, we're gonna click on, if you're not already in, we're gonna go ahead and click on the Lab 1 Install Collector. Okay. And I'm going to guide you through these. Basically, it says, hey, to ingest data into Sumo Logic, we must set up one or more collectors and sources. We will show you how to install a collector. We will set up an Apache access log source, and we will set up a host metric, okay? The schematic shows you, the diagram shows you what we're going to be doing. All right. If you want to learn more about hosted collectors, you can always click on the link and go there. Before you begin, that's where we are together right now. Here is our log source. It's called Apache Access Logs Tutorial Text. Go ahead and right click on it and save it. Okay, right click on it and save it. We will come back to it later. We need it as the source. Okay. Next, we're on the install collector. All right. To make the process easy, we're going to stream our data into Sumo for viewing and analysis. Okay. How we're going to do that? We're going to use a collector, an install collector. All right. We'll show you how to install the collector from the collection page, but you could also use the setup wizard. All right. We're already signed in, so let's go back to the CIP. Let's go back to our navigation panel. If you have clicked on something and it's still expanded, like the help, you click on help again, it collapses it, okay? All right, now in our main menu, let's go ahead and click on our manage data link. Under the manage data link, let's go ahead and click on the collections. Now, if you were with me earlier this week, when we came here, we didn't have all of these links available to us, but we're in an admin, so we have that availability. Let me explain what's going on the screen, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, be aware we've launched a tab called Collections when we clicked on Collections. In the Collections tab, there's 4 tabs here, okay? We're gonna stay on our Collections tab. Okay, under the collection tab, there's a search area. Okay, under the search area, there's show all collectors. You can click the drop down arrow and filter to change your search and what you're viewing. To the right of that, it tells you by default you're seeing 10 collectors. You can click the drop down and change that to a different view number of collectors displayed. Over to the right of that, right now, ladies and gentlemen, and I often tell users, when you come in the collection, it's expanding all the collectors so you can see all the sources, okay? It does that. I often come in here and click none. That's usually the first thing that I do, so it doesn't be so overwhelming on the eyes, okay? We're looking at page 1 of so many, all right? Let's go ahead together, ladies and gentlemen, in the top right corner, click on the phrase add collector. We get pop-up here, okay? And we get several choices. You and I are going to use an installed collector, okay? So everyone click on that if you don't mind. I am on a Mac, so I am going to use the Mac installation. You may be on Windows, so maybe you're going to use the 64-bit installation. Maybe you're on Linux, you're going to use one of those. Okay? So whatever environment you're on right now, go ahead and click on it. It's going to download the collector. Once your collector is downloaded, you can, of course, go ahead and double click on it. You should see something like this. Okay, once it's downloaded, you're going to go ahead and double click on it. All right, now let me bring up the guide to kind of guide you through this as well. So you've chosen already on step 4 your operating system. You should have downloaded the install file. You are going to, of course, double click on it. It will take you through a wizard. Okay. So let me go back. Again, you'll double click on it. It'll eventually come up and take you through the wizard. It may prompt you for administration rights for your machine. So if you don't have that, that might be an issue. You might have to watch from this step on. Okay. Yeah, Chisholm, that's what I was, yep, mentioning, yep. Josh brings up a great point, everyone, and let me point this out to you. So we have another way of installing. You can do command line as well. All right. You can also install your collector command line. Now, I have the latest Mac, and you might have the latest Mac as well. And if you're not aware, Apple has moved from using the Intel processor to the M1 and now the M2. They have their own processor. So it's probably going to be an issue because of that M1 processor. Okay. Yeah. So Josh, that's the issue. Again, I run into the problem as well. So one of the things that I've done is to make my class go well. And if you run into this problem, it chews up a lot of that. Zoom is chewing up a lot of memory on your machine. So probably if you did this outside of this Zoom class, it probably would work a little bit more fluidly. Okay. But yeah, M1 on those and M2s, those are giving us issues. Okay. Anyhow, sorry for those that have issues. You can kind of walk through, follow us as we go through these steps visually again on your own. So you should come to the phrase where it says, welcome. If you haven't already logged in from the admin, then you're going to accept the agreement. You'll click next in the wizard. Okay. And then where I want you to do is once you get to the access key point, I want you to stop there and just let me know that you're at that point. Okay. So again, you're following what's in the lab guide. And once you get to the screen that reads access key, that's where I want you to stay. Okay. Sutler, is that thumb up indicating that you're at that point? Or does that mean you have an M1 machine? Okay, great. Hang there for a second. I want to kind of explain, walk through everyone at that point. So hang there for a second. And you'll get to this point and I want you to kind of hang here. Just hang loose there. Kind of wait till a lot of others get there, please. Thank you. Again, let me know as well. Once you get to that point, you can raise your hand or get thumbs up like Seller has. Okay, Greg, sounds like a good try. Yep, good college try. Try it again. What machine are you using? Are you on a Windows or are you on a Mac there, Greg? Thanks, Greg. I see you. So you might be running into the same issues. I don't know if you have an M1 or not. Alec, thank you. Okay, Greg, good. Good stuff. Okay, I'll be sorry. Yeah, if you don't have admin rights, nothing I can do. But again, these steps are pretty fluid. You'll be able to walk through them, no worries. Okay, Matthew, I see you're here. Give a few more an opportunity to get to the point where we are. I don't want to leave anyone. we'll do, what we'll do, ladies and gentlemen, is while we're waiting for others to get to the point where we are, we can go ahead and sneak in our 5-minute break to allow others to get to, again, I want you to stop at the access key, okay? So I'll put up the timer and I'll see you in 5, okay? Okay, welcome back. Hopefully you had the opportunity to get away from the monitor. Hopefully your install has gotten to the point that we needed. So how are we doing? Everyone at this point now, can I go ahead and proceed? Anyone still lagging behind, or sorry, not lagging, but is anyone still behind? All right. So if you're at this point where it reads access key, okay, let me get there as well. It says login system to Sumo Logic, right? Now, if you use a token, that token is only going to last for the period that you log in. So it's temporary, okay? We want to use something that is repeatable, that's often able to be used over and over again. So we're going to use an access key. So go ahead and choose that radio button if you haven't already. Click next. It's going to prompt us to provide an access ID and an access key. Where do we get that from? All right, let's go back to our CIP. In our CIP, let's go down to our main menu and let's click on the user ID that we logged in as. So click on that user ID you logged in as, training, admin, whatever, okay? Underneath that login, there's some other links. Let's click on the preferences link. The preferences link opens up in a tab, and you'll see there's an area that reads My Access Keys. If you have one there already, that's just someone created one in the training environment. No worries, you can delete it if you want to, no big deal. You and I are going to go ahead and create an ad and click on the Add Access Key button. We're going to give our access key a name. So let's just call it access key underscore, and let's go ahead and put our initials. You don't need to put the date. I'm doing that because I do this quite often, okay? So again, so far all we did was give our access key a name. We're now going to go ahead and create the key. So let's click on the blue create key. Now, let me digress for a moment here. If you're in an environment or you're at a company that they keep a log or a track or documentation of your access keys, again, if you're in an environment that keeps track of a library of a documentation of all your access keys, you want to go ahead and copy your access key now and put it in that library or the documentation or whatever your company's using to track all access keys. Because once we click done, we'll never see this access key down here, this key information again. So I'm just forewarning you, if you have a library that's keeping those tracks of those, this is the time to do that. Anyhow, let's go ahead and copy over to the right where it says access ID, click on the copy. Let's go back to the CIP or to the actual installation where it says access ID, and let's paste. Okay. Again, let's go back, grab our access key by copying it to memory, going back and pasting. Okay. Now, the tool is going to attempt to connect. So let's go ahead and click next. And I'll go ahead. We can we can choose done with the success of that. We no longer need that. Let me do a few things here. Okay, cool. All right, so it's attempting to connect to Sumo Logic. Hopefully we'll eventually connect. Let me get into the lab guide to see where we are. So we generated the key, we added the key, Sumo Logic, yep. And then we should eventually get to a finish, okay? So if you have one of those M1 machines or M2 machines, again, what I did was before class started, I actually started the process before I got onto Zoom because it takes up a lot of memory. So that's one of the techniques that I used. It got me past that, and then now here it'll probably time out and I'll click it again. So those of you, some of you have already gotten in. If you notice, the next step in the lab guide is to go and look for your collector name. Now, your collector name is going to be your machine name. So let me scroll up a little bit here. So your collector name is essentially whatever your machine name is. We could have renamed it if we wanted to. That's what you're going to search for. Yep, and let me know if you have gotten to this point, ladies and gentlemen. Let me know if you gotten to this point. Awesome, we're still working, good, still forging ahead. It should time out for me. And then eventually come back and say success. Again, we're following the guide for lab number 1. We've downloaded the text file that's going to be one of our sources. We clicked on the add collector, went through the simulation of installed collector. We chose our collector source based on the actual environment you're in. After we downloaded that file, we went through the wizard, clicked next to the wizard. We accepted the agreements. Greg, that's awesome. I'm glad you're able to see it. It's green, that's good. I hope to be there with you rather quickly as well. Buddy. Let me go over here and let's go back here and let's go back to our managed data. So what you're going to end up doing, ladies and gentlemen, once you get that done, you're going to go over to manage data, go to your collections. Again, you know, if you come over there and the tabs are, everything's expanded, you can click on none. Then you're going to go to the search area and you're going to type in, so I'm going to type in, let me type in, I'm going to use a wild card. So I'll put an asterisk at the beginning and an asterisk at the end and hit enter. So I have created one, it's healthy, looks good. Again, let me know once you get to that point where you're looking for that collector. Again, I'm just being silent to allow others to get to the point where we are with the collector install. And I just clicked on my information icon to see If I could have saw a little bit more info on this one. So yeah, I saw this on the 8th. Okay, that's what that was. All right. All right, Matthew, congratulations. Glad you can see yours as well. So that's 2 of 22. Alec, glad to see it. 3 of 22. Thank you, Matthew. Ivy, yeah, I know you have admin permissions problems. No worries. Okay, good to hear, Ivy. Okay, Josh. So again, I think you're running on the M1, so I think that might be the issue. Um, uh, Another approach is to do it command line. It's a lot longer, a little bit more tedious, but you can do it that way. If you go out to the help.sumo Logic, you can look at the command line installation of a collector. All right, I am going to assume that others are not. I'm still waiting. It could be related to the firewall. Okay, Craig, understandable. Yep. All right, so are others having problems? Okay, looks like, okay, Sutler, you're in. All right, perfect. So those of you that are still having issues, hopefully it'll again rectify shortly. I want to go back to the lab guide. All right, so you have verified that your collector has been created by going out. So good work. You've completed these tasks. You've downloaded an Apache app access log file to your machine, and you've installed a collector. Okay. Now we're going to add a source. So let's click on the lab 2 add a source link. Now, since we don't have certain permissions in our environments, we're going to move that file we downloaded from the downloads folder. If you're on a Mac, we're going to move it to the TMP folder. If you're in a Windows environment, you're going to move it to the TEMP directory. Okay. So again, we need to have access to that, and some of us may not have access to that download. So we're going to move that file. So I'm demonstrating that now. I'm opening up my file finder. Let me maximize it here. Okay. And I'm going to go up to my menu and my file finder, go down to go to folder, and I'm going to type in \tmp. Okay, and I want to go to my temp directory. I should have copied the file that I downloaded first, so that's what we want to do first. We want to copy, I apologize, from our downloads directory, copy that Apache _access_logs_tutorial, copy that file, go up to the menu item in your menu, go, and then go down to your go to folder, and then go to your temp. And then you're going to paste that item in your temporary directory. I need to rename mine for a second here. Went the wrong way. Let's go back over here. There it is. Okay. So let me rename mine because it's going to prompt us, and I've done this several times, as you can see. It's just context. All right, cool. All right, so hopefully you've, again, moved that item over successfully. I'm going to cancel out of this. Finish. Oh, there's the finish button right there. Okay. All right. All right. Now let's go back to the lab guide. So we moved that file over. All right. Next, we're going to create an Apache log source. Okay. So now that we have the collector set up on our machine, you're going to go ahead and add a source. Okay. So we'll go back to our collector. So you and I can go back to the CIP. Make sure you're on the collector tab. Make sure you found your collector. Okay. Here's mine. There's nothing underneath it. All right. I'm going to go over to the right here and click on the add. Okay. It gives me two choices. You and I are going to add a source. Okay. It gives us several categories: file source or platform source. You and I are going to do a local file source, but I want you to take a moment just to peruse what you're going to see when you get into the real world. Some of the icons, so you can just be aware of them. Okay. So you and I are going to go ahead and click on the local file. It brings us to a menu where we have to, go ahead and start populating menu. All right, so we're going to go ahead and call this one Apache host metrics. Just make sure. Nope, I'm wrong. I'm wrong. We're calling it Apache logs. Sorry, Apache logs. So let's call this Apache logs. I'll put my initials there. This is, of course, underscore. Okay, so once we put your initials on the Apache logs and your initials, and we need to put a few more things. All right. And this is 14. Thank you. All right, now let's go back to our lab guide. We're going to put a file path. Okay, the file path can be copied from under the screenshot of the sources. Okay, so it's just the \tmp. And for those of you that are in a Mac environment, I just pasted it in the chat for you. Okay, so we're going to use that phrase as the path. Okay, and then as a source category, we're going to use prod Apache access. So as this data is being ingested, it's being tagged. So when you and I go into a log search, we can use the source category equals prod Apache access, and we can go ahead and find all of our access log messages. Okay. If we wanted to get it even further, we can add a key value pair where it allows us to get the key value and define it here as well. Okay. So the three things that we did: we gave it a name, Apache logs, with our initial. We specified the file path. It's in our temp directory. We specified a source category. We gave it a name to that tag. Okay. You can scroll down to the bottom and click Save. What you should see, a green box that momentarily pops up that says Successful. Okay. You should then see underneath your collector name, you should see your source. There's the name, I can see it's green and healthy. I can see the actual source category name. And if you hover around that line, that row, you'll see this little blue icon. That allows you to open this source in a log search. Now, be aware, you're probably not going to get any data right away, all right? But if you come back in another 20 minutes or so and run the same query, and maybe I'll change the time period, you're going to get data, ladies and gentlemen. We just defined it. So again, you come back and run this a little later, you'll see the data, all right? All right, let's go back to our lab guide. So we did all of that. We actually clicked on that to test our new source. Again, we put the time frame to the last 24 hours. We'll probably have to come back and look at it to see the data. All right. Good job, ladies and gentlemen. Let's continue on. Let's click on lab 3, where we collect and visualize host metrics. Okay. So here's the diagram. We've done part 1 of the lab 1. We've done the lab 2. Now we're going to do the lab 3, where we're going to set up a host metric source, visualize some data collected from that source, and then install a host metric app so we can see the out-of-the-box dashboards. All right, so we're going to add the host metric. So we're going to go back to our add under our source name and choose host metric. So going back to the CIP, I'm just going to click on the collections tab because I might want to come back and run this again. So I'll click on the collections tab. I see my collector and I see the actual source underneath it, but I want to stay on the row where the collector name is, and I want to go all the way over and click on add again and add a source. And this time we're going to go ahead and use a host metric. So let's go ahead and click on that. It's a platform source. All right, so here we'll go ahead and put in, let me put in the right thing here before I say anything. So we're going to put in Apache host metrics with our initials and a source category. That's all we're doing. Host metrics, Apache host metric is our name, and we're going to provide a source category. Okay, so let me go up here, go back, Apache host metrics with my initials, and that as well. Okay, and then we go down to our source category, and we're going to set it to prod host metrics, prod host metrics. Those are the only 2 things we're doing. Now, let me talk about what else we could do if we wanted to, and also bring it to your attention. Down at the bottom of the screen, you'll notice that the metrics that I'm currently collecting are the CPU metrics and the memory metrics. But I want to generate some more data. So I want to go ahead and get all of my TCP metrics. It's not mandatory that you do this. I'm just demonstrating what you can do. I want to get my network metrics as well as my disk metrics. So I'm going to generate a lot of data. Okay. Again, all we did was add a name and a source category. Okay. Be aware you can also add your field and key values here as well. Let's go ahead and save this. You should see a green instantaneous source has been successfully created. You'll notice now you have a host metric. It is healthy as well. It's called prod host metrics. And if you notice on that row, you see another icon. It's different than the one we saw before because we're talking about metrics. So this is going to open in metrics. So if you click on that little icon, you'll then eventually see it's generating some metrics down at the bottom there. Okay, you'll see it eventually. So congratulations. In this lab, you've created a metric source to send to your host metric information into Sumo Logic. You can start investigating your host metrics. Now, let's install a host metrics app that provides us with some out-of-the-box dashboards. So I want you to envision in the real world, you just went through what we did in the real world. You installed a host metric. So the data is now getting into Sumo Logic. Now you need to kind of start querying through it, but you really don't know where to start. So one of the advantages of using our tool is you can download an app that will give you some starting points like log searches and dashboards. So you and I are going to go back to the CIP, go down to our main menu, click on the app catalog. Again, you can see all of the categories of sources that we have. Okay, we have over 100 or 200 apps out here. Okay, we're going to type in the search area host. It filters down for us. Okay, I see two, host and process and just host metrics. We want just the host metrics. So let's click on that. Another benefit of using our apps is we give you predefined dashboards so you can see them. You can see the preview them as well. And we give you a description of what this app is going to do. This host metric app is going to allow you to monitor your performance and your utilization of your host and the processes of your missions, critical apps. Okay. So again, we're going to go ahead and click on the blue box, add integration. It takes us and puts us in a wizard mode. Okay. We're going to go ahead and click next in the wizard mode. We don't need to open up a setup document. We know how to set this up. Okay. We're going to go ahead and specify what our source category is. Our source category is going to be set to prod host metrics. Prod host metrics. Okay. So right here where it reads source category, I'm going to put in there prod host metrics. I could, if I wanted to, I could edit the name of the folder that's going to be created. So let's imagine that you and I were in both, both of us were, two of us were in the same environment. I could distinguish mine by just putting my initials here. Okay. Not that we're in that, but I'm just giving you an instance here. Okay. We're in a wizard mode. That's all we've done. We set up the source category. We've equated it to prod host metrics. This is how we're going to grab our metrics and view them. And we click next in the wizard. You're going to eventually get a success. Then you can exit out of the wizard. And just looking at the lab guide. Awesome. Yep. All right. We're going to open up that one. Okay. All right. So it'll eventually complete, and you and I will then be able to go to our personal folder. So I got the success. Okay. And now I'll go to my personal folder in my navigation panel, and I do see that uniquely named object that Odell created called host metric. If I expand it, I have predefined dashboards. I click on host metric overview dashboard. A new browser, a new tab opens up in our environment, and we are seeing our overall CPU, our average idle time, load times, our memory, our disk. Again, all of this is based on that source that we created. Okay. So again, that's a great question, Greg. It probably knows simply because we're in individual environments based on our user ID. I'm taking a logical guess, but maybe I think that's it. Okay. All right. Let's go back. Hopefully you all got this. Now, remember, ladies and gentlemen, here's another key point. Under each one of these dashboard panels is a metric search. So I can click on this and show in metrics. Okay. So I am able to visually see the metric as well. Right? I'm going to close out of that, and I'm going to go back to the one that we ran earlier and see if I'm getting any data now. Still no. Maybe later it'll come in. Again, it's going to work, so we'll see it. All right, getting back to where we should be. We looked at that. So you've now visualized host metrics data, and you have the host metric app dashboard. You could actually go out and take a look at the working with metrics topic in the help. Okay, so go to the help.sumologic.com again and look for working with metrics. All right. Let's go back to our slides. And let's talk about, did it log me out? Awesome. All right, so going back to the slide so we can go to lecture, and then we'll come back and do 4 and 6. Optimization tools is where we are, ladies and gentlemen. Optimization tools. All right, so in this chapter, we're going to go ahead and talk about our optimization tools approaches. There's 2 approaches. There's a field-based approach for optimization, and then there's the indexed-based approach for optimization. Under the field-based, there's the field browser. Remember that I talked about this, ladies and gentlemen. You may or may not know what I'm speaking to, but the field browsers allows you to zero in on a specific field. And there's also the field extraction rules, okay? So again, the field-based approach is utilizing the field browser that has those fields that were extracted during ingestion using a field extraction rule. That's going to improve performance. That's going to optimize your queries, okay? Another approach is index-based, where we're going to partition. Remember the example I gave you earlier. One of our business units has their own, they have their own, account, money account, and they want to create their own environment so they can search through their environment. So we can create partitions where we route that unstructured data into an index, okay? Another approach on an index based is to use a scheduled view. And a scheduled view has those pre-aggregated data values. So if you have a lot of numbers that you're crunching, again, you could use a scheduled view to improve that performance in our tool. All right, so just on the screen here, taking a look at the field browser. So we open up the an actual search. When we open up a search over here to the left, we refer to this as our field browser, okay? And let me go in tool to kind of demonstrate some of that. So let me close a few of these tabs as well. Again, you don't need to do this. I'm still in lecture. I just want you to be aware of, if you haven't been already, the actual features, okay? All right, so when I grab this and run this query on that source, I see over in my field browser these additional fields. These fields were parsed out during ingestion. In the field browser, you have quite a bit of information, okay? You can see little icons to the right of these objects. So that's a little clock there indicating that's a time object, okay? You see an A here indicating that's text. You may see a pound symbol indicating numeric, okay? I don't have any of that right there, okay? Let's see here. Yeah, talking about that, you can search through it. Again, you'll see different pieces of information. You can see the count of items. Again, you can, as I said, you'll see a pound symbol by an item telling you whether it's numeric, the A for whether it's string, and of course the clock. Now, what are some benefits of field extraction rules? Now, in case this appears on an exam anywhere, in case you take exam one day and you see this, remember it. Field extraction rules provides better performance. It standardizes field names and simplifies searches. Let's talk about this standardized field names, okay? If we use a field extraction rule as an admin, what we're doing is we're going to improve performance for our analysts. So when they go in and query this here source, the fields will already be there for them. They don't have to parse out, okay? Now, also, when I use a field extraction rule, when I use the parse statement, I create alias names. So what I can do as an admin, I can create an alias name that's standardized. So I can create a name, and instead of you having to create a parse and creating your own name, that conflicts with what I created, I'm creating a standard. So you use the name that I have with this source. So I went a long way to just kind of tell you that the admin can standardize the naming conventions because he or she can create the names so the actual analyst doesn't have to. Some best practices, again, you want to build some simple and specific rules. You want to test your parsing. Again, there's some limitations. There's 50 rules to 200 fields. If you need to increase that, you can also contact us. All right, now let me kind of go and demonstrate a field extracting rule for you, just in case you haven't seen one. Again, you don't need to do this. I'll go back to the CIP, go back to my navigation panel, go to my main menu, and I'll go to my logs, okay? I'll go to my logs, and then I'll go to my field extraction rules, okay? I'm gonna look at one that was already created to give you an idea. Now, you and I have the ability to add a field extraction rule because we're in as admin, okay? Again, we can go in here real simply, give it a name, tell it when do we want it to be applied at during ingestion time or maybe at runtime. Then we would add the parse statement, okay? So I am going to open up one that already exists so we can actually see that one, okay? So here's the demo FER, here's that one. Again, here's the name of it. It's enabled, green is good. When is it gonna be applied? At ingestion time. So as messages are being ingested from this source, the scope, we're going to build a parse statement. And here's what I was talking about standardizing names. So in this parse statement, we're declaring a new name. We could have called it source IP, but we used src_IP. So we essentially created a standard, okay? So users, they can just go to their field browser and look for the src IP. Now, they may not know that we renamed it. Hopefully you have a data dictionary or something to let them know, whatever. But again, here's that parsing. These are the fields that are going to be available for me, and they're extracted, so they'll be in my field browser, okay? While I'm here, I'm going to go over, let's see here, before I go, let me make sure I covered everything here on this slide. See here, yep, okay, all right. So yeah, that was all field extraction. So now let's talk about partitions, okay? All right, so partitions is a pseudo boundary. So it's like a boundary that's created around a subset of data, okay? Now the value of partitions is that when you query a partition, it improves search performance by searching over a smaller set, okay? So you can see only access to maybe production will be needed, okay? As opposed to going against the entire object, all right? Again, a number of organizations can take advantage of this partition structure when they run queries. There's no overlapping, have fewer than 20 partitions. It's ideally between 1% and 30% of the total value, okay? Scheduled views, okay? Again, with scheduled views, you want to speed up your performance and your searching for small and historical subsets of data by functioning as a pre-aggregated index, okay? Your scheduled view queries once per minute. Those queries that run against the scheduled view return search results much faster because the data is pre-aggregated. So again, going back to in tool, again, if I go to my partitions tab here, you and I can add a partition. We give it a name. We can specify how frequently of the ingestion here, and you can also go out to Sumo Help to find out more about these data tiers. We can then define how long of a retention period for this. Any routing, so maybe you don't want the data to be hosted here, you can route it somewhere else as well. Again, that is creating the new partition. Schedule views, again, we have that capability as well by clicking on the add. We can give them a name of the view as well as the actual query, any start date or end dates for the partitioning. Okay. Now, schedule views are assigned to an internal collector index. Okay. Schedule views only count towards ingestion value if they're non-aggregated raw results. That's the only time they're going to count against ingestion. Okay. You have the data forwarding capability. Again, if you want to forward data, it might be easier for you to forward that historical data instead of us hosting it forever. You might want to set that up as well. Where am I in my tool? Again, I'm in manage data and I'm on the logs. All right, going back to the diagram here. Some examples of views, again, if you have web access trends or any app issues, app usage metrics, or any threat analysis, or any user behaviors are examples of when to use those scheduled views. Again, we talked about optimization tools, the two types, the two approaches, field-based, where you're using the field browser and those fields of interest are available in your field browser. They were made available to you via field extraction rules that your admin created to extract those fields, to also make sure performance is improved, so those fields will be available to you. Okay. On the other hand, is the index base. We can set up our our role-based access control, or RBACs, to deny or grant access to partitions or scheduled views. Now let's take a look at the overview of our data management, okay? And I'm just gonna go in tool, but what I'm gonna do first, ladies and gentlemen, is I'm gonna log out so I can log in as myself, because I have quite a few more, okay? So let me click on this and log out. And you can just watch as I go through this as well. There are some features that the training that's not in the training environment that I want you to be cognizant of. When you get into your real world environment, you won't be surprised. Again, you are logged in as an admin, but we do have that admin ID locked down to a period. Okay, so if I go into my administration, I want to go under account. Okay, you have that. Okay, in the account overview, when you first log in as an administrator and you click on the administration, you'll see the account overview screen. Okay, it provides a highlight of the system and an indication of performance. Okay, you can also look at your current account billing periods. You can see how much data you've ingested daily. Again, this page can be very helpful. Okay. You can also see the storage usage as well as the capacity for billing period. Okay. Then there's the data management. Okay. That data management tab here, you can enable this data volume tracking. By default, it's already checked. Later, ladies and gentlemen, you and I are going to download an app called Data Volume. In order for us to work efficiently, we have to make sure this is checked, but it's checked by default. Okay, we're going to download that Data Volume app, which is going to allow us to see the visibility into how much data we're sending into Sumo Logic. It's going to allow us to proactively manage our system behavior and to fine tune our data ingestion. Okay. The data volume index provides data for logs and metrics as well. Okay. Again, we recommend that this is checked and enabled by an administrator. Next, you're managing your plan. Again, you might not see that, but you do have that capability as well. You can manage your plan or your budget. Going down next to the users and roles under my admin, here I have two tabs. You can add a user. Okay, now, one of our recommendations, when you add a user, we recommend you add the full first name and last name. The reason we recommend you add that is so when they go and take a certification, it has their full name. It's not O. Gordon or Odell G. Okay, it is Odell Gordon. So again, we recommend you create it with the first full name and last name. All right. Roles. We have predefined roles in the tool already. You can, of course, add your own role. You can give it a name. You can specify if you want to add a search filter in it. You can designate the capabilities of this role, and then you can apply that role to a user. Okay. So again, if I go to a user here and click on him, I can see his or her roles that have been added. Okay. So again, that's under the admin, users, and roles. Okay. Now I'll go to the security. Here we can set up our password policies. So again, if we want to designate the expired time, the reuse ability, as well as the password must contain options, any failed attempts, if we want to enable two-step verification, again, all of that is available to us here on the password policy. Okay, going over to the right of that is our service whitelist, which is very important in case it appears on an exam. Okay, you can use the whitelist to enable logins from certain IP addresses and ranges. You can enable dashboard URLs to be shared worldwide, as well as you can control enabling the allow list. So basically, what this does is you provide an IP or a CIDR, okay? And then you can enable whether that person from that IP address or that CIDR has access to any of your environment or dashboard. So this is how you could lock it down in depth, okay? All right, here. Now, let me go over here. Your access keys, remember you and I had already created an access key long time ago. Well, we went down into our username and clicked on our preferences, where you as an admin, you can see all of the access keys available, and you of course can add an access key if need be. On our policies, here is where you can see 5 different sets of policies. We can audit law allows us to monitor users' access. So this is a good thing to enable, as your system would track that information. So this is auditing, allows you to monitor users' access. Okay. For support here, for support access, this allows Sumo to access your account if you need any assistance. That's this one right here. You can also enable with the shared dashboard here. So with this enabled, outside organizations can they're able to share or see the dashboard outside of your organization. Okay, so you can check that and turn that on or not. Again, sharing here, again, we're talking about dashboards. The data access level for shared dashboards, if you enable this, ensures that the viewer permissions are used and not the permissions of the sharer of the dashboard. And then you have the per user account timeout session. This allows you to specify the number of concurrent Sumo login sessions that a user can have. Okay, and then you also see the timeout end days as well. There's the SAML tab here, your security your security assertion markup language. If you guys are using SAML on single sign-on, this is where you set it up. As an admin, you have the ability to configure security for your SAML. If your organization is using SAML as a provider, we strongly encourage you to integrate it with Sumo Logic, okay? Then there's the installation tokens. These are the tokens that were created. Again, you have that capability to see those tokens as well. All right, so that's under the admin. Those are the 3 links that we just covered. Okay, that data management, let me demonstrate where that is. It's actually been moved. So under my managed data, if I go to monitoring, here I can see the health of my events. So I can see any errors that I may have. I can see my connections. Okay, and I can also see any monitoring capabilities that are here. Okay. All right, under my collections, we talked about the ingest budget. Some of you may not be seeing this, but you have the ability to add or create ingestion budgets. Maybe, again, certain business units have budgets that you want to control or manage. Again, we have that capability as well. All right, so what you and I want to do is take advantage of some more of those out-of-the-box apps. Again, we recommend you do this. We deliver over 200 of those out-of-the-box apps that have predefined dashboards, saved searches, and they also have some field extraction rules, okay? The recommended apps that we suggest you download and add are the data volume, so you can view the user's accounts and their usage based on their collectors, source names, and host names. Okay, and we also want you to do the audit. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and get into, so I went through all of those. Awesome. I went through the rules. Yep. Content sharing. Let me go over that for you. All right, now, ladies and gentlemen, let me close out some of these tabs so you can visually see what I'm about to demonstrate, okay? If I click on one of those 3 tabs in the middle, which one is the library? If I click on the library tab, I'm not in the navigation panel. I'm over here in the tabs. Right now, I'm viewing everything that I have, okay? So I'm viewing it from my perspective. But if I click the drop down arrow to the right of it, I can change to content administrator. Now, the benefit of changing to the content administrator is I can see all of the user's information. And what I can do is if a user leaves the company, I can reassign his or her folder to someone else, okay? Otherwise, it's just gonna sit out there, okay? So we wanna reassign it. This is how we reassign items. We go to the actual library tab, we change our view as to content administrator, okay? Just remember to change it back to yourself, your me, once you're done, okay? So again, you can share, you can enable this here through the content administrator. You can call attention to content. You can tell people, hey, look at this dashboard, it needs attention, etc. You have that capability as the administrator. All right, you and I are gonna go ahead and do lab 4 and 6. So back to our lab guide. If we click on lab number 4, we're gonna go ahead and install our audit app. It uses Sumo Logic audit index events to present this information about account management, user activity, the management of your library content, such as those folders that I just mentioned. We have to make sure that that audit index is enabled. I told you already when we went in there, it was already enabled. We're also going to download the data volume, okay, which also talks about the accounts data usage by category, source name, by collector as well. We also have to make sure that the managed data volume index indicator is enabled. I mentioned that to you as well. It is enabled. So let's go ahead and look for in our navigation panel. Let's go to our app catalog. Let's type in the word audit, case insensitive. Okay. And again, we want where it just reads the word audit. Click on that. While you're here, you can peruse. I'm sorry, you might have clicked on it already, but you can see there's other sources. There's my Amazon S3 buckets audits. I can Azure Cloud audit. Again, I can see different sources here. That's all I wanted to point out. Okay. All right, so we're in a wizard mode. Again, it gives you a description. It also allows you to walk through those dashboards. We're clicking on the blue box that takes us in a wizard mode. I'm going to go ahead and change my name. You don't need to do this. I'm going to go ahead and put my initials and date because I've created 700,000 of these things. All right, so we're in a wizard mode. We don't have to really do anything. You can just add your initials if you want to. Otherwise, you can just click next. It will then eventually say success. You can then exit out of the actual app catalog or the installation. You click on that exit box. And then you can go over and look at your personal folder. Once it comes up. And in your personal folder, you're going to see that newly created audit app. You will expand the audit app, of course, and then you will open up the actual overview dashboard. So I finally got a success. I'll go to my personal tab. There is the folder that I created. If I expand the folder, I can see this folder comes with dashboards and searches. I want to look at my overview. So I'm looking at library content overview dashboard. So one of the things that I can find out immediately is where users are logging in from. I can find out what are they doing. I can find out what are they doing over time. I can look at a user activity over time, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so all of these dashboards are available to me. and they were made available through consumption of the audit app. Okay, so we did all of that. We opened it up, we saw what's there. Now, we also have the ability to share the app, okay? So we can go straight up to the folder, click on the three dots, click on share, or if we wanted to share just the dashboard, we can go up to in the top right corner, click share, and we're sharing just the dashboard. So depending on if you want to share the entire folder, you choose share from the navigation panel, or if you're still in the dashboard, you click share the dashboard, okay? Remember, just to remind you of sharing, you can share with users and roles, okay? So the users and roles, or you can share with the entire organization, okay? Remember that when you share, by default, you have view access permissions, but you can designate, edit, and manage if you need to, okay? Then you would just share. Now, users that want to find or look at what you shared, they would go to the library and search for that shared object, okay? All right, back to the actual, did all of that, we shared it. Now, let's go ahead and install the data volume app, okay? So we'll go ahead back to our app catalog. In our search, we'll type in the word data, case insensitive. It filters down. I see the word data volume. I click on that. Again, it gives me a description. This is going to show me the views of the account users of my data type, my data types, my tier and my category, etc. I see my dashboard previews. Okay. I am going to go ahead and click on add to integration. It puts us in a wizard mode. Okay. It added it successfully. We can click exit. We didn't have to do anything here. All we have to do is click on add. Odell, I don't see it. Click off of your personal folder and then click back on it. It should magically appear. If it didn't, let me try that again. It went so quickly. Data volume, bada boop, bada bing. Click next. I might have clicked it too quick, or maybe I clicked exit. So now it says successfully there. I click off of it and click on it. And that's awesome. That is really awesome. Did any of you have this issue? All righty. So it's just me. I'm special. Okay. Anyhow, you would have that data volume app there. I can actually go out to the library and search for one. I'm sure there's one out there. All right. So again, you'll have that. Oh, you had this issue also, David? Okay. So I need to make note of that. Anyone else have this issue? I thought it was just me. Where the issue that I'm asking is we tried to install the data volume. It goes through the process and click next. Let me just, it says it's already there. That's awesome. Let me see here. Oh, maybe it takes a minute. Mine is now there. It took a minute, but it's now there. Okay. Okay, David. Well, awesome. As long as you got it. Now with this data volume, you'll notice the difference between the audit. The data volume only has dashboards. There's no searches. So if I click on the data volume overview, I can see my ingestion by source category, the log volume, the volume by day, gigabytes by day. I can see the usages by source categories. I can see the top 5 source categories. Look at some metrics down at the bottom. So there's pertinent information here on this overview of my data volume. Okay. Of course, you know, you can share this if you need to as well. So we would choose the share again, and users would be able to find it in their library. Okay. All right, clicking on lab 5, we of course are not going to do lab 5. Lab 5 is really for those of you that have not taken the fundamentals. We allow you, if you're doing self-paced, we allow you, after you create those collectors, we allow you to go ahead and do lab 2 through 6. That kind of gets you more comfortable with the environment, okay? You and I are gonna go ahead and click on lab number 6. And we have a query that we're just gonna paste in. This is an alerting. So we're gonna create an alerting when data ingestions reach a 50% threshold. So we're showing you or demonstrating how you can create these thresholds alerts to be aware of you've reached something, okay? So again, let's go ahead and copy whatever is under number 3, copy the entire query. Copy that. So we're gonna run this with a time range of today, okay? So let's go back to our CIP. Let's create a new log search and let's paste this in, okay? So basically kind of reading what this query is doing. First of all, you notice it's using a different metadata tag. It's using that index to grab that partitions, okay? It's using a where clause where it's setting our source category equal to collector undervalue. It's parsing out the byte size, the collector, and the count, okay? It's using those fields to do a gigabyte. So it's dividing our bytes by 1024 3 times. It's then summing the gigabytes to give us the actual collector amount. It's then totaling to give us today's value. Our plan threshold is set at 100. So this is our limit. So we're using 100 as the plan size. We're then dividing our gigabytes by our volume for today to get our percentage of today's volume. We're then dividing today's volume by the plan size to get today's volume against the plan. And then we're using a where clause to replace any desired thresholds that may have been. Then we're sorting, and then we're using the field command to put all of those fields that we created in the order that we want them to display in. So this field command is saying, hey, I want to see the collector, gbytes, collector percentage, et cetera, et cetera. That's the order that I want to see it in. And of course, here is that order, okay? All right. Let's go back here and questions. Are there any questions, ladies and gentlemen? We covered quite a bit of material. If there aren't any questions, then you know what time it is. It's assessment time. You and I are going to go ahead and take the 30-question exam. I will be here for 60 minutes. You need 75% to pass. It is open resources, open slides, labs, and documentation. Okay? Don't forget, my favorite resource is help.sumologic.com. As a reminder, ladies and gentlemen, you are logged in to our training environment. So you need to first log out of our training environment. Then you need to log in to your company's Sumo Logic environment. If you're taking the exam now, you're going to log into your company's Sumo Logic environment. You're then going to go to the Learn tab. Excuse me, sorry. You're going to go to Certification tab. You're going to go to the Certification tab under your Home tab, the certification link, and you click on Get Certified. That will take you to our certification page. You will then click on the box that reads Get Certified. You will then click on the box to read that reads administration exam. Again, the administration exam is what we've just completed. Okay, then you would register. Go ahead and start. Again, it tells you it's 30 questions, 60 minutes. Click next. And you'll go through the 30 questions. Say that you've set up a new collector and you can confirm that your data is being ingested. Since you see a healthy count of recent messages, however, a search for your logs for the last 24 hours returns no results. The most likely issue may be there's no field extraction rules, the data forwarding is not enabled, the time zone or timestamp is misconfigured. Multi-line processing is not enabled. I'm going to go with the time zone, or maybe the time period. So if you have this question, again, we have a large bank of questions. So if you have this one, and if I chose this one, if I get it wrong, don't choose this one. So you'll go through the actual 30 questions. You'll submit all your answers. And what I want you to be aware of, I got it right. Gee whiz. What I want you to be aware of, this is where you can actually review what you got wrong. We don't give you the answer, but you can get a mental, oh, maybe I was hesitant and I chose the wrong one, okay? So again, you're gonna close the course. If you didn't pass or get the correct percentage, you can always take the exam again, no problem, okay? One thing that I failed to mention to you all week, ladies and gentlemen, and I apologize. And if you know someone that's not in class, share this with them as well. When you take the exam, you'll see up in the, after you take the exam, you'll see up in the right corner, you'll see a little person. That's you. If you click on that person, you'll see my profile, okay? And that my profile will, again, state who you are, but here's the advantage. You can come out here and you can post your certification on LinkedIn, okay? So again, all those exams you've taken, if you come out and click on that person, go down, you can post it on LinkedIn, okay? All righty. All right, so if there aren't any other questions, I'd like to thank you for allowing me to present to you. I'd like to thank you on behalf of all the trainers here at Sumo Logic. We look forward to seeing you in upcoming trainings. Good luck on the exam. If you're about to take the exam, good luck. For those of you that are not taking the exam, you can actually exit out of the Zoom. Have a good rest of your day, a good rest of your week. Once you've completed the exam, you, of course, can log out of the Zoom as well. I will, of course, put the Uber Eats voucher link in the chat shortly, okay? You all are welcome. Thanks for participating with me all week. I enjoyed it. You guys were fun. You cracked many jokes. You had me laughing all the time. Thanks, guys.